Don't listen to them. They've been out all day. I just put them in the pen a minute ago, which protects them from predators all night. Yeah, you're good. Thanks for the egg. Some graffiti artist painted a bunch of obscene stuff on my trailer once, so I finished it. Made it abstract. I got a bunch of spray paints. It was a lot of fun. It's not really a hippie trailer, it's just an artist's trailer. And I still haven't cleaned up after Josh finished the shed. And I've put a bunch of hay down over here. And the pigs are kind of working it into the ground nicely. So hopefully that will begin the process of seeding. And turns out the fence was actually, the connection was broken. This is really not the proper way to connect to a fence. It's already starting to crackle like it was doing, but much louder. So there's something to learn there. Anyway. Hey everybody, it's Mark Shepard. Healing Pastures and Apocalypse Gardens. Let me see if I can get out of the wind here. The wind seems to be very, very changeable lately. And it's loud on the phone. There we go. Hey, Mark Shepard from Healing Pastures and Apocalypse Gardens, and it is Sunday, the 3rd of April, 2022. And today I have a couple of songs for you and another meditation for Sunday for starting your week reflectively. And not much else to introduce. I harvested 5 pigs last week, so we will be having pork really soon. So if you're interested, please visit the website, healingpastures.org. We're using the pork as a fundraiser as I start a church that is supportive of homesteaders, farmers, creative people, people that feel they belong more in a spiritual but not religious setting, or anyone of any religious faith. People who think deeply about why we're here, who we're supposed to be, how do we do this relationship stuff, how do we do this health stuff, how do we support ourselves in ways that are authentic and don't kill our souls, and how can we be good friends, good neighbors, good people in a community that is resilient and thriving. So that's me setting the stage for today, and let's get going. Here's a song, I Live in God, that I wrote back in Unity Church in 2011, Unity Church in Albany. And this really kind of brought back to me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I've been trying to figure out a way to do it ever since. Here we go. I'll talk to you later. Boom.
I had a Sunday school teacher back when I was 5. She said something I'll remember as long as I'm alive. We live in God like the fish live in the sea. God lives in us like the sea lives in the fish. We live in God like clouds live in the sky. God lives in us like light lives in our eyes. I live in God. God lives in me. I live in God. God lives in me. I deny the illusion of separation, and I affirm that all is one, all is one. We are no more apart from God than sunshine is something other than the sun. I live in God like the fish live in the sea. God lives in me like the sea lives in the fish. I live in God like clouds live in the sky. God lives in me like light lives in our eyes. I live in God. One and one is one. God lives in me, and two is one. I live in God, and three is one. God lives in me. So it's Sunday morning, and I'm sitting here in the pew with you. The Reverend Jim is speaking true. Speak it, Brother Jim. And the affirmation starts resonating in my heart. So how can I keep from singing from the God in me, the God in you, the God in we? I live in God. I remember, God lives in me. I surrender, I live in God. One and one is one. God lives in me, and two is one. I live in God like the fish live in the sea. God lives in me like the sea lives in the fish. I live in God like clouds live in the sky. God lives in me like light lives in our eyes. I live in God. I remember, God lives in me. I surrender, I live in God. Like the fish live in the sea, God lives in me. Like the sea lives in the fish, I live in God. God lives in me.
Well, it is April 3rd already, 2022, and today is a Sunday, and I've made a commitment to myself that no matter what else I have going, that I'm gonna do some kind of sacred acknowledgement of the Sabbath, a sacred acknowledgement of the fact that in the midst of our busy lives, sometimes it's really healing and really healthy to take a little time to stop. A little time to reflect. A little time to set the intention for the next week. Last week I talked about fear, uncertainty, and doubt versus awareness, intention, and action. And awareness is often the hardest thing. So many people aren't aware of the patterns and habits and the way that they are thinking that is causing them to create the kinds of problems that they wish they didn't have. But once we become aware that we are the ones creating it, in the case of relationships, for example, relationship after relationship, I experienced the same kind of thing. And eventually it occurred to me that, oh, maybe it's not the other person. Maybe it was me all along. The unconscious choices that I've made to focus on the things that I focused on rather than maybe focusing on other things. Our behaviors, our attitudes, all of that is part of how we create our own reality. And two people could experience the exact same, let's say, partner, and maybe because they have different issues, different life histories, they might come away with a whole different perception of those partners. So, all that to say, I just got back from Albany, and I spent a wonderful weekend with my partner Ursula, and we were reflecting on all the things that we used to trigger in each other that somehow, because we've both made the commitment to recognize our stuff, to recognize the thoughts we've been thinking that have caused us to experience relationship in certain ways, because we've both been able to do that, we've both been able to shift things. And I connected with an old friend, and he's in a relationship that is kind of causing him a lot of pain. And he sees that he's creating it, or at least his part of it, but his partner kind of refuses to see that she is creating it as well. We both create it. There are two people in every relationship. Every relationship. And how we behave and the thoughts we think about the relationship and about the other person create what we are experiencing. And yes, sometimes there's abuse. And sometimes there's enabling. And sometimes there's codependency. And so all these different psychological terms. But the reality is, every single one of us is in a primary relationship with ourselves. And a lot of times we project out onto another person our shadow stuff, positive shadow stuff, as well as negative shadow stuff. And a lot of wind. Hold on. Let's see if I can. Where is the? I don't know. Where's the wind coming from? Anyway. So positive shadow stuff, negative shadow stuff. And what shadow stuff is the stuff in yourself that you don't want to acknowledge, the stuff you don't want to look at. And so it shows up in another person as a projection. And it's a deep subject and probably beyond the scope of what I can do on a Sunday meditation, but the reality is, wherever you go, and I discovered this as a kid who was bullied, when I started doing bullying prevention stuff, I realized that my patterns of holding stuff in and not standing up for myself kind of invited bullies to come in. And then in 7th or 8th grade, I started kind of fighting back, which is inappropriate in school. But I started standing up for myself. And today I would have gotten detention for standing up for myself. But it was strange. Every single person who I stood up to began to be friendly to me after I stood up to them. So the dynamic in relationships is complex and it's deep. And it's never just one person. It's always two people and the way they interact, their history, their family stuff. All this just comes into play. And in any spiritual community, in any work environment, those dynamics are at play as well. So the first step is, again, awareness, becoming aware that, oh, there's this pattern and it seems to show up with everybody. Is it the rest of the world that's against me? Or am I somehow inviting people to respond to me, to my behavior, to my energy, to my unconscious patterns in ways that get me X or Y or Z result? And the question is, oh, what if I change me? What if I change me? What if I change my behavior? What if I change what I'm thinking? And in my relationship with Ursula, anytime I would start to feel the old stuff, I would, again, as I talked about last week, I would talk about why does it work out better than I can possibly imagine? And I would challenge my own thoughts, for one thing, and then I would talk to her without making her wrong and say, hey, when this happens, I tend to go into this feeling. Can we talk about it? And again, assuring her, it's not you, like it's me, and I want intimacy with you. I want connection. And I'm trying to work on my stuff. And that gave her the opportunity to work on her stuff. And granted, when we were not together for a year, she worked on her stuff and I worked on my stuff. And every relationship, every woman that I tried to date when Ursula and I were not together, it was an exercise in pain and frustration for me. And it was like, oh, there's that pattern. There's that pattern. And the other people were not willing to see it or work on it, and Ursula was. So then I saw her on the street one day in Albany when I was down in Albany, and I was like, hey, do you want to go for a canoe ride? And she was like, yes. And we went for a canoe ride, and we were able to reconnect, and it's taken us now 3 years of continuing to work on our stuff, 3 years of having difficult conversations. And the thing is, I look around and I see couples who obviously love each other, who care deeply about each other, but they're driving each other insane, right? And I see this over and over and over again. It's one person who's willing to do the work and say, hey, let's go to therapy, and the other person who's like, well, it's your problem. It's your problem. I'll go to one therapy session, and it's not enough. And so they don't break up, but they don't really connect. And so people are living in this kind of desperate loneliness. And I believe deeply that the Creator designed us to open our hearts and designed us to help each other heal. I believe that the Creator designed us to be happy. And the human mind can really mess things up. We can think the craziest things about the craziest things, and we can interpret things in negative ways and get triggered when the other person didn't intend to. So who's doing the triggering? We are triggering ourselves. So this whole idea of honest communication is great, but both people need to be willing to learn the tools and techniques. One simple takeaway, one simple technique is when someone says something to you, is to feed it back so that you're sure and they're sure you heard what they actually meant, no matter what they said, right? So if I say to my partner, hey, I am feeling lonely and disconnected from you, the other person should feed back, I'm hearing you say you're feeling lonely and disconnected. But what happens is, let's say I'll say I'm feeling lonely and disconnected, and my partner will go, well, I didn't do it. Why? I can never make you happy. You're never satisfied, right? Here, I made you dinner, or I did this for you, or I did that for you, and it's never enough, right? It's not what I was saying. I was saying I am feeling this. I am creating these feelings. And I want to be able to talk about it so that I can make sure I'm clearing my own crap and letting you know that I love you and I'm feeling disconnected and I want to be connected. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. That's not what I even started out to talk about. I think the universe and everything in it, this tree that I'm leaning against, is God. The river that is flowing down the hill from me, that is God. The pigs in the pig enclosure are God. The microorganisms in the soil are God. God is the sea of awareness, and we are waves upon the sea of awareness. And sometimes as waves, we rise up into the air and we see another wave, a companion wave. And we want to do more than wave at another wave. We want to connect with that wave. We want to travel together. We want companionship. We want to express and receive love. And all that is good. Ultimately, though, we are in these bodies, in these physical forms. We are spirits in bodies, not bodies with spirits. And our bodies are programmed to connect males with females, females with males, or in some cases, hearts with hearts, depending, genderless love. It's all the same. But the sexual energy, that thing that brings men and women together, that thing that brings male energy and female energy together, even in same-sex couples, there's often a male and female component. That energy is the ultimate energy of the universe. Because sexuality is the gift of awareness, the ability to bestow awareness on the next generation. And every living being has it. And that is ultimately the most powerful example of God's life force. And so it needs to be treated with the utmost respect and wisdom and sobriety and delight. And to realize that that coming together is an energetic thing and that it is all about healing as well. I just had a 4-hour car drive. And is this what I came to say? I don't know. But the thing is, if you are in a romantic relationship, sometimes you need to sit down with your partner and say, hey, I love you, and I'm working on myself, and I need your help. I want you to go there with me. And some will and some won't. But you have to go there first, with yourself, sometimes by yourself, before you can then connect with that radiant being of light who is other. And to know that it all comes from Source. And the worst possible day in our lives is still a gift, because we're here, we're alive. We have come into these bodies for some purpose, and the beauty of the universe is God lets us discover what our purpose is. God gives us the freedom of choice to learn the things that we can't always learn on our own, but with a partner in community, with people who may disagree with us, with people who may trigger us. That is part of the process of becoming closer to Source. And I think that's enough. I think that's enough for this week. And I have some good music for you to close this out. And I wish you all the best. I think of you often. I imagine you out there. I hope my words can be a source of healing, a source of inspiration, a source of refreshment on a Sunday, so you can take something with you into the week so that you can have a week that is better than you could possibly imagine. And why does it work out better than you can possibly imagine? Peace, grooviness, over and out. Boom.
Until one day I realized I wasn't a perfectionist. I was an imperfectionist. I was looking at everything and seeing what was wrong with it and how it wasn't good enough. And one day I decided, you know what? What if it's perfect? What if everything is perfect exactly the way it is? Right here, right now. Highest regard. Could you hear it? Could you receive it? Could you believe it? Could you even let the thought in? Let the thought in. Let the thought in. Let the thought in. Of someone I see in the mirror occasionally, what you will see when you finally set yourself free. Set yourself free. Set Set yourself free. Set yourself free. If I told you that I love you and I hold you in the highest regard, in the highest regard, the highest regard, could you receive it? Could you believe it? Could you even take the thought in? Take the thought in. Take the thought in. Take the thought in.